Sustainability is a global issue that cannot be solved with local tools. When I say we, I mean all of humanity. I do this because our natural environment perceives us as a single species, no matter how self-centered we are and how little we think together as a community. By self-centeredness, I mean, in part, putting individual interest ahead of others even if causing them harm, and in part, common human goals that do not serve our survival while they distract our natural resources. Technology means changing our environment and our ability to do so. From a sustainability perspective, the change is the primary outcome, and its byproducts are tangible products, services, and easily usable energy sources. We tend to focus on the byproducts, and for us, changes to our environment are a side effect, even though from the perspective of our long-term survival, the opposite is true. Sustainability is a complex and comprehensive set of goals and tools, a complete and holistic topic that requires our full attention. If anything else appears among the goals, then it is no longer about sustainability. This is especially true when economic goals come up alongside sustainability. The Industrial Revolution had a huge impact on our economic establishment. It transformed the economy, technology, and science in many ways, one of the most fundamental changes being the emergence of separation. Separation, or the isolation of a phenomenon or activity, is a very effective tool for pursuing a specific limited goal or a narrow set of sub-goals. The clear observation of a phenomenon and thus its deep understanding or the purposeful and thus masterful performance of a single activity is typically the result of separation. At the same time, this limitation also applies to responsibility. Everyone primarily pays attention to their own narrow range of activities and takes responsibility for them, but not for the destruction of natural resources, even though it is very rare to find an activity that does not reduce the value of our natural resources. Another fundamental contradiction is that sustainability is a complex goal that cannot be achieved through simple, highly limited sub-goals. Narrative is an effective tool. It can be used to sell stories, products, and companies, and its presence or absence can determine the outcome of elections. When we successfully influence others with narrative, it becomes reality. At the same time, it highlights and validates a point of view, whoever it may belong to, that is contrary to our situation, which depends on the natural environment and the complex issue of sustainability. In a dependent situation, turning our own point of view into reality is downright harmful and greatly worsens our situation. It is in our human nature to seek out the new, and our current economic establishment encourages this. We seek new answers to old questions, just as we constantly find new questions. So, until we provide a valid answer to the recurring question of whether our establishment is sustainable, we are moving further away from balance every day, increasing the likelihood of change every day, regardless of new answers and questions. The presence of our ego is strongly felt. It is one of the driving forces of the economy, and advertising leads to predictable behavior that is easy to reinforce and exploit. At the same time, our ego makes cooperation difficult, makes coexistence bitter, and by definition, our ego is the enemy of sustainability and wants to make others depend on us. The latter is particularly convenient and profitable in many ways, and it also provides a sense of security, but it elicits behavior that is opposite of what our dependence on nature would require. There is a fundamental difference between natural and economic resources. We account for economic resources, but we actually impact natural resources without taking this into consideration. Economic resources are all available materials, energy, and direct services provided by nature. Natural resources are the proximity of our natural environment to a state free from human intervention. Accordingly, our natural resources are not to deplete. There is no bottom to the pit we can lean on. Our natural resources are deteriorating, first slowly, then in direct proportion to our emissions, and then accelerating until we reach a tipping point or breaking point where even a small amount of further deterioration will have magnitudes greater impact. Economic and natural resources are different, their value is different, they behave differently, we deal with the former, but the latter is what matters. Global problems cannot be solved locally. Many of us trust that the consequences of our unsustainable activities will not be unbearable for us personally, and this confidence is temporarily supported by the delay caused by the size of our natural environment. We do not believe that achieving sustainability is our responsibility, nor do we feel that we have the means to do so. Everyone will bear the consequences of our unsustainable way of life, and we all have responsibility to achieve sustainability. Even when we are anxious, we can still use or even distract our natural resources. In this respect, anxiety is not a special condition. Similarly, anxiety does not exempt us from the consequences and effects of inevitable changes. Generally speaking, we cannot escape trouble by explaining or justifying what we do and why we do it, why it is good for us, or why we cannot act differently. In this case, we will know why we are dying out, but this will not change the threat or reality of our extinction.